All right, thank you for joining us for Staying Alert with Christian Overcomers. And today we're going to discuss an American awakening. You know, after 2 years of suffering through the Obama administration and a liberal House and Senate who have been systematically dismantling our nation, we now have a glimmer of hope. Because this past election, the American people woke up and sent a clear message to Obama and the liberals in Congress to stop. Stop what you're doing immediately. We don't want any more government bailouts. We don't want the government taking over our industries. We don't want the government telling us what foods we can and cannot eat. We want the government to get off our backs and let us run our own lives. We want freedom. So we turn the tides of the Obama administration's agenda by voting out more than 60 liberals in the House of Representatives, giving conservatives more seats than any other party has had in the last 70 years. Question: are the American people really waking up, or will this be a short-lived reaction? That depends. If the American people simply rely upon themselves or a political party or a single man to save them from this overreaching tyrannical government, it will be short-lived. Even our Declaration of Independence declares that freedom comes from God and from God alone. And you see, the signers of the Declaration knew that man was incapable of granting individual rights and freedoms because they studied history and they knew that man had a track record of always infringing upon those rights. So relying upon a man or a single political movement to save us is a recipe for disaster. But if we put our trust in God and educate ourselves and our children in His Word, the Bible, I believe that this awakening will continue. You see, we need to replace the darkness of ignorance, lies, and deception that the media has spread throughout our nation with the light of knowledge, wisdom, and truth. You know, Ezekiel the prophet lived in similar times as we do. His nation was falling apart. The people were devoid of any knowledge from God's Word, so much to the point that they lost their freedom and became captives to the Babylonians. It looked as though there was no hope left. So God came and took Ezekiel to a place in a vision, to a place where there was an open valley there, and it was covered over with dead, dry bones, which represented His people. And God said unto Ezekiel, "Ezekiel, can these bones live?" And he said, "I don't know, Lord." And then the Lord commanded him to teach the people, to prophesy unto them. And when Ezekiel started to teach them God's Word, a mighty wind came and it roared in, and these bones started to come to life, to join together until it stood up, until all those bones arose and it stood up as an exceeding great nation, alive with the truth from God's Word. And that is our example, I guess, on if we are to continue to have an awakening in this nation, it needs to be founded upon God's Word. God's Word needs to be rooted in the minds of our people so that they can understand and discern the difference between what is right and wrong, between what is truth and what is fiction. You see, it is God's Word that brings life. It's God's Word that brings restoration. And it's God's Word that brings freedom. And you know, I can't fully answer this question without going to John chapter 1, verse 1. And let's read it there. And it says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." Think about that. The Word was God. "The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by Him, and without Him was not anything made that was made. In Him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not," or the darkness could not overtake the light. You see, what we're talking about here is Jesus Christ is the truth. His Word is truth. And darkness can never conquer the truth. Think about it. Go in sometime to your house and test this out. Go into a dark room and turn on the light. What does it do? It dispels the darkness. It lets you see the hidden things of those, in the spiritual sense, of those lies, deception, and ignorance. You know, oftentimes I hear people say things like, well, the Bible foretells us that a new world order is coming, so why try and fight it? We may as well just sit back and watch the show. Not only is this flawed thinking, but it is not biblical. As Christians, we are commanded throughout the Bible to stand against evil until the very end. We must never just sit back and watch evil conquer and destroy people. What good would we be if we did that? But yes, it is true that all of the world will eventually fall prey to the New World Order, according to Revelation 13 and other places. However, it appears from Revelation 12 that America will resist joining this world government until the midpoint of Satan's 7-year reign as Antichrist. For I believe that America is that great nation in the wilderness written about in that 12th chapter, who is protected by the 2 wings of the great eagle. A nation with a destiny and a purpose to fulfill in God's plan. And I also believe that America may even be responsible for delivering a deadly wound to this world governmental system in Revelation 13 verse 3. And if this is true, then we as Christian patriots here in America have a big role to play now and in the future. For it will be virtually us standing up against the rest of the world. Well, I guess it's kind of like that today, isn't it? But think about it. The only thing stopping this tyrannical world government from arising is a remnant of Bible-believing Christians right here in America. And you may be a part of that number. So don't lose hope. Don't get discouraged, no matter how bad things get in the future. Keep your head up high and continue to march towards the enemy with righteous indignation and the sword of truth in your hand. And pray that God begins to awaken our nation more and more each day so that we can be Christian overcomers. God bless.